Audit officials are expected to release a report this week, and Democrats and the fake news media are in absolute panic. They even dredged up Al Gore in a desperate effort to regain control of the narrative. As the hour of reckoning approaches, what can we expect to see in the days ahead? Let's take a look on today's show. Welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse, coming to you live from Columbus, Ohio. So the audit panic continues as we're approaching the day of reckoning. We're approaching the results coming out, and you can see all across the media landscape, the political landscape, the big tech landscape, there's a panic happening. There's an absolute panic. And as the thumbnail says, tick-tock, there's a time bomb. It's not just the results coming out. It's the concern of what is the response of these criminals who have taken over things and are planning to ultimately bring us down if they can, but we're not going to let them. So we first jump into greeting everyone who's here. Thank you for coming here. I love seeing where everyone's tuning in from. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, hit the like button. It helps spread the video, helps share the video. Make sure you subscribe, YouTube especially. They keep unsubscribing folks from the channel. They keep undoing the notifications that those are checked. And if you really want to bypass big tech, then go watch me. I'm streaming live on Rumble. I'm on Odyssey. I'm on a handful of the other places that are not controlled by most likely the Chinese Communist Party censoring anything they don't like. So again, we've got Cook from Toledo, Ohio. Welcome. Hello, fellow Ohioan. I've got someone here from Canada, from Guam, Janet in Michigan up north. Qatar, laser hobbyist from Doha, Qatar. I've heard it, both ways. Steve the Searcher, good afternoon from Dublin. We're closer to each other than you might think. Nikki from Malawi. Wow. Dave from Thailand. From Kansas. Dark 2 Night from London. I'm sorry what you're going through over there in London. I'm sorry what's happening with your leader over there. It's quite a disgrace. From Georgia, from Florida, India. Wow, love from India. Sachin, thank you for joining. So thank you everyone for coming on and joining the live show. Again, just a quick reminder, I'm going live every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. And if you saw my show over the weekend on John McAfee, I'm also going live to cover breaking news when I think it's important. So let's go ahead and dive into what's happening with the audit. I think that it's as much as there's these other things that are happening in the world, even what we saw at the building down in Florida with the McAfee event, with everything that's happening with COVID, I think that fundamentally all of these things are trying to distract us. And we're going to get into this today because the greatest fear is the truth of this audit coming out, because that could potentially lead to Trump being put back in place, rightfully so, and a whole host of other things, a domino effect of that. Not to mention that all the other states are watching Arizona. And as of I last checked, I think there's 20 different states that had toured the audit facilities and looked at what they were doing in Arizona. So Arizona has become the gold standard for conducting an audit. And we're going to get into some of the details of what they're doing and what that audit looks like and why the entire complex of the evildoers, they are all freaking out because there's a lot of truth that's going to be coming out. So let's just first start with a more general update. I'm going to share with you what I found. And also a reminder is that all the articles I'm talking about, I'm putting into the description below the video. So if you want to follow along or if you want to go share the article in particular or read it in depth, you can find all those links below. And one last reminder is to follow me on Telegram. That is the social media where I'm the most active. I'm also on Safe Chat, I'm on Twitter, but Telegram, I would say, is where I'm most vocal. I share my thoughts. It's the social media I use the most often. So I do recommend you follow me on Telegram, and that link is in the description below, just under Man in America. So let's jump into the first article we have about what's happening in Maricopa. So we're going to the good old Gateway Pundit, which the Gateway Pundit, I have to give them a lot of credit because they have had incredible coverage of the audit. They've had reporters that have been there nonstop. They have been just incredible in making sure the truth gets out. And this is, again, this is what the mainstream media fears the most, is it's these small independent media that are getting the truth out about what's happening. And this is going to be even more important because once the results officially come out about this audit, they are going to try everything they can do to hamper that, to cover it up, to distract, to potentially have false flags, which General Flynn has talked about, which we're going to get into that today. They're going to do everything they can to take away from that truth. So that's really on us. You're going to have people like the Epoch Times, the Gateway Pundit, the National Pulse, the Federalist. You have these media companies that are not scared to stand up and report the truth, but it's our job to help carry that message, because we know that if you look at what happens on Facebook, what happens if you share one of my videos on Facebook? I get a lot of responses from people saying, hey, I tried sharing your video, Man in America, and Facebook deleted my post. They wouldn't let me share it. It was flagged with a warning, whether it's something related to COVID or the election. So big tech is trying everything they can do to stop this. So we just have to try harder. We have to get more intelligent, work together better, because we have to help these media companies get this information out. Because this information becomes critical. And as General Flynn has talked about before, this is informational warfare. That's what's happening right now. And I see some folks asking about Rumble. The Rumble link is also below in the video description if you want to find my channel on Rumble. Okay, so let's dive into this article with the Gateway Pundit. I'll pull this up full screen so that you can read it along with me if you'd like to. And again, this is just an overall update of where things are at. So the Arizona audit started to pack up the tables and vacate the Coliseum floor this weekend, but it appears the audit team is still performing quality control checks and thoroughly rechecking their evidence. So Senate Leader Karen Fann and audit officials are expected to release a statement as early as this week. So this is the initial statement we're expecting, which is not the full forensic report. It's just a statement on what I think an overview of what they're seeing. And I'll get into that in the bottom of this article. They talk about that. So OANN's Christina Bobb was there, incredible reporting on everything that was happening with the audit. And so she said, what they're referencing, her report, the audit team continues to wrap up and prepare their evacuation from the Coliseum by Wednesday. So you see there a picture, they're cleaning up, they're packing everything away. They're done with the hands-on audit that's being done in the Coliseum. All right, so let's jump back down here. It says that we did not receive a preliminary statement today on the accuracy of certified election results. The Senate is currently occupied with hearings on the floor attempting to pass election integrity bills, which they've had some great success out there with that, and a conservative budget. So this is important. If the results showed an accurate election, they would likely make an announcement today. The audit team appears to be reviewing their work until the very end to guarantee they have concrete evidence in court. This is not something that they want to rush. Okay, so Christina said that it would be easy for them to deliver a report that says the election was accurate, but not accurate is a harder statement. She does hope to see something from the Senate early this week. Everything will be moved out of the Coliseum by Wednesday. The forensic analysis report is also expected to come out in early August. Again, that's the big report that we're waiting for, is the forensic evidence report, because that's going to be the detailed report with all of the evidence that whatever they're finding, and that maybe they found no evidence, highly unlikely according to my beliefs, and I'm sure your beliefs as well. But if they found evidence, that evidence has to stand up in court. So this is very different from, if you recall, when all of Trump's lawsuits were thrown out, from the local up to the Supreme Court level. Now, that was different because here, this is an actual government body. This is the Arizona Senate that's compiling this report. So if they compile this with the proper evidence, et cetera, and then they present that, as far as I understand, it wouldn't just be tossed out. It would not work that way. They would have to be looking at this. But again, when that evidence comes out, it's our job to help the entire world see what evidence that they have. Because if enough people, and look, even people that are, Biden supporters, Trump haters, people in the middle, et cetera, even folks like that, they need to see this, because if there is this real evidence, they need to understand, because look, regardless of who won, every person in America should want fair elections. And as much as you have the entire narrative from the mainstream media complex, you have that entire narrative that's pushing that these audits are, conspiracy theories, et cetera. It's like, well, wouldn't they, if there is half the country or more that's second guessing the validity of these elections, wouldn't they want to do a proper audit to tell people, look, hey, we did the audit. Maybe the audit comes out there was no tampering, there was nothing wrong. Okay, but you should at least be able to do that and tell the people, hey, you can trust our elections. Because what happens if people in America stop believing that the elections even matter? That's, to me, that is the beginning, that is the unraveling of our republic. That is the complete, that's the end, that's the beginning of the end. That will probably descend into a totalitarian nightmare as that starts to happen. If people start saying, you know what, I'm done voting. Who cares anyway? It's big government's gonna, even if we win, we're not gonna win anyway. So let's just give up, which is, we do not want that to happen. So how they end this article that they're saying is that, again, the forensic report is expected to come out in early August, which they'll be checking to see if there's any fraudulent ballots cast, switching of votes, deleted databases, etc. They said another pattern to watch out for is how many ballots were only filled in with a vote for president and no down ballot races. If there were thousands of ballots with only a presidential vote, that could also indicate issues. And what they say is hopefully early this week, we'll have a statement from the Arizona Senate. It looks like they're preparing to make history with this extensive forensic audit of the Maricopa County ballots. So that's the main update of where things are at, because I think that one of the biggest questions I have, and I see that you're asking a lot, what's the timeline? When can we expect this to happen? So like the article mentioned, and with Christina Bob's reporting, we should get some indication, we're hoping this week, some sort of statement from the Senate or the committee on what's happening. But the larger report, they don't expect to be coming out until sometime in August. Now, and this is just for Arizona. I'm not going to be diving into the other states in this particular show, but we've got a lot of movement happening in Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan. So this really is referred to as the domino effect. And if you recall, one of the earlier videos I did was Domino Joe. I had all the dominoes coming down on poor Joe Biden, because this is the beginning of that. And so and this is what they fear too, because if this one kicks off, if they bring out a strong amount of evidence of, misdoing, to say it lightly. And you'll notice I unfortunately, I have to censor myself a little bit because I'm on YouTube, and I have too many friends that have been kicked off of YouTube that have lost millions of subscribers because they were reporting on things that, that the YouTube deemed, don't touch this. So I guess some folks occasionally will ask, well, why are you even on YouTube? Why don't you go on Rumble? Why do you self-censor? And the reality is look, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, it's our duty to get this information out to people, not only on the right. If I want to go only to Rumble, it's really an echo chamber there. I'm preaching to the choir. Thankfully, again, by the grace of God, I'm still on YouTube, and that's allowing me to reach a much broader audience. I'm also on Facebook too, I'm pretty amazed by that. Actually, I get incredible traction on Facebook. I think no small thanks to your support, but being on Facebook, being on YouTube are allowing me to reach the folks that are on the left, in the middle, that are not sure. These are people that are being led, being led down the wrong path. So that's why I'm here. I really hope to stick on YouTube as long as I can and reach as big as an audience as I can, because this is the information that we have to get out. This is information war. I'll keep hammering that. So let me jump to something, just a reference from Trump. So you probably saw that Trump was in Ohio this past weekend. Unfortunately, I did not get to go. I've got a young child. It's a little bit tricky for me to plan these things. It's not just something where you show up to Trump's rally at 7:00, you go in and you watch. There are people camping out to get in. So again, this is not an easy thing to do, but he did talk about the audits in his rally, which I want to mention here just because these rallies are significant. And one thing that is important about this is that if you saw the news about it, so Trump he opened up an official Rumble account. So there's a lot of fake President Trump accounts, and a lot of people have said, oh, Trump's on Telegram. He's not on Telegram. Trump's on this platform. As far as I understand, and I'm really looking to these things, the only social media currently that Trump is on is now Rumble. And it is the official Trump. So the account is just Donald, if I believe it's just Donald Trump, if I remember correctly, it's the official account for President Trump. So he broadcasted this rally on Rumble, which is to me, that's a major step towards him bypassing his censorship. Not to mention, if you follow Jason Miller, who is going to be heading up his social media project, that seems to be very, very close within weeks of coming out, which is very exciting. And I think that people were asked, I see a few questions about the streaming of that event. I think between Right Side Broadcasting Network and his Rumble account, it was earlier numbers I saw were over 500,000. I think it was actually much more. And the rally had 50,000 people in attendance. So you can see what the people think. You can see exactly where the American people's hearts are in terms of who they look to as their real leader. So let's just talk about really quickly, though, what Trump said. He didn't go in depth, but I just wanted to so you have his words. I see someone asking about Gab. No, Trump is not on Gab. He's not on Gab. He's not on Telegram. He's not on Twitter, obviously. He is only on Rumble at this point. So now looking to what Trump said at his rally, he said, quote, "I want to thank the brave Republican senators in the state of Arizona for what they're doing. Because they saw what was happening and what is going to happen is they're going to issue a report in the not too distant future, and it will be interesting to see." So I love all Trump's language. He's such a marketer. He's always dropping, it'll be interesting to see, right? He knows what's going to be coming out. And he continued and said, "A lot of states have gone to watch them and have come out with praise. So let's see how that turns out. It is a big deal." Okay. So again, that's just a quick update from Trump. Is something that the next article I'm going to show you is the personal words of an auditor out in Arizona. And to me, this shows exactly why the entire left is freaking out. Okay. So let's jump into this because this is interesting and this was encouraging to read, but this is a great article. Again, Gateway Pundit. As I've told you, the reporting has been incredible on this. So what this is saying, here's your headline by Joe Hoft, who runs Gateway Pundit. Dems must be terrified. Maricopa County Auditor Bob Hughes shares how they're using high-tech forensic digital cameras and OCR to validate the ballots. So this is very helpful. When I read this is very helpful for me because it helped me understand more about the science of the audit. And so this is what's, I think, important for us is because especially if you have friends that are saying, hey, those audits are a sham or, it's a conspiracy, the more that we know about this information, we can say, actually, well, this is how it works. And I think usually people are like, okay, well, I watched Rachel Maddow and she just said it was a sham. And so, well, thank you for that evidence. Maybe I should start thinking about not watching Rachel Maddow. So anyway, let's jump into this. I'm going to read this to you. So one of the auditors working for the Arizona Senate, Bob Hughes, discussed an audit and the reasons why the Democrats are absolutely frightened of the Arizona audit and it being performed in other states. Now, in the bottom of this article, there's a video. I'll scroll down and show you really quick. If you want to watch this right here is a video that you can click on and you can go watch him speak live. So here's what he said. This is very, very good to know. The other thing that I think is interesting is they keep saying, quote, they don't know what they're doing. They're idiots. These people are ridiculous. They have no idea what they're doing. They've never done this before. Those are a lot of things that you hear. If you watch Mrs. Rachel, you're going to hear these similar things echoed, CNN. So what he says, though, this is the first time in the history of the United States, number one, that it's ever been done. But more important, it's the first time it's ever been needed, and it was done. I can tell you that I could go over all the process and you'd all understand, but when a ballot gets created, think about this. It's like your bill being paid from SRP. I'm not sure if SRP is a local company in Arizona. They go out and get your voter identification number, and then they find out what precinct you live in, what city, what country, where your school districts are. Make this full screen for you if you want to follow along. All that information has to be accessed to create the proper ballot exactly for you, because you have to vote for the right candidates in a city mayoral election, city elections, JP elections, the legislative district, the congressional district, right? If you voted, you know that everyone that you're voting for is tailored to exactly where you are, because you're not just voting for, do I want Biden or Trump? There's a whole series of other people that you're voting for, that those people that you're voting for have to be matched up to you, because while everyone in Arizona is picking one or two presidents, as you get more specific, you're also voting on the county level, et cetera. So again, the ballots have to match the individuals. So he says, think of those as maps that overlay the Maricopa County area, and it creates these little sections, and all these people get a very different ballot. So if somebody did what we were told they might have done, which is gone out and just duplicate a bunch of ballots or put the same ballot in many times, or any of these kinds of things, I knew there was a way to find that out. And so what we did is the cameras are not only cameras, they're digital cameras that are forensic. They're actually police forensic cameras. They're very, very high speed, high definition digital cameras. They make a scan ballot. So we scan that ballot. We then use optical character recognition, which I would imagine to be that you scan the ballot and it can then input all the information. It's like it reads it similar to, you can use those apps that do it. You can take a picture of a page of a book and the app will convert it into real text for you. So they scan the ballot. They use optical character recognition, OCR. We're looking at what's in place on that ballot. Based on who that ballot is, how many should be. Can there be this many? What I can tell you now is you will now have the most authentic count of every legal authentic ballot you could possibly have. So this was actually very, very helpful for me to understand, because if you think about it, as he mentioned early in the article, you've got your list of all the people you're going to be voting for, right? So in your final ballot, so me as Seth Holhouse, where I voted, I've got a specific set of people that match exactly me, and what I'm voting based upon where I live. So if you think about if there was any kind of wrongdoing, if there was what we think potentially, whether it was ballots flown in from China or Korea, there's all kinds of things like that. If that was happening, how would they possibly mass produce ballots yet still match these individuals like that? It would be nearly impossible, which is why they've talked about they're looking for what you'd see as people that only voted at the presidential level, because that would be one of the indicators. Because so say someone gave me a general ballot that was mass produced, then, well, what if I'm voting for someone that's in the wrong county, or what if that ballot is even more than a statewide ballot? So say it's not matching up some of the state votes I'm going to be making. So again, they're matching these ballots, and especially looking at it's a big red flag if someone's only voting at the presidential level, because if you're only voting at the presidential level, then you have to then imagine that then they don't have to worry about all those sub candidates matching you. Well, it's like only, hey, he picked A or B. We're going to make sure that everything is coming across as B. So this is interesting. That was very helpful for me. So they're using these high-speed cameras basically to scan all that information in, and then measure that information against the databases. So that's what they're doing. Now, one thing that's interesting, I'm going to show you, and I don't know what the point of this, I'm not sure, but I just want to share with you, for some reason, on this screen grab right here. So you see it says AZ ballot audit. This is the thumbnail for the video of this man. They have a list of the AZ ballot audit, which shows 223,000 illegal votes. So is there any validity in that? I don't know, but it's just interesting that that happened to be the screenshot for this guy's speech. So again, we have to just look at this, what's potentially happening there. Now, so if we're looking at the overall story, as I mentioned in the beginning, the radical left industrial media complex, the politicians, the deep state, as we might just call them all, to refer to this gigantic apparatus of evil that has its tentacles into every part of our country and is trying to swallow us whole like the Kraken. if we look at what they're worried about, it's this information coming out. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos, I love to watch the mainstream media, right? I'm not crazy. I have my reasons, okay? Because how the mainstream media is reacting shows you so much about what's really happening, because you know that they know what really happened. They know the truth, okay? They know that there's one singular truth. So they're complicitly lying if they're going against that truth. But you can always see how they react, and it tells you about what's coming next, what's on the other side of it. So there's two videos I want to show you quickly. And I've got a video of Obama and I've got a video of Al Gore. I don't like hearing these guys' voices, but one thing that I'll point out that I really want you to focus on in watching these videos, look at the body language and look at the speech patterns of both Barack Obama and Al Gore. When someone's telling you the truth, they're looking at you. They're looking right into the camera. They're speaking. They're clear. They're concise. When someone's lying, their eyes are doing this. They're looking off to the side. They're stuttering. You can see it all over their body language. And people that are trained at reading body language can see this stuff in a second and understand. But I want you to watch these videos. Watch the two videos. They're only about less than a minute each or so, of Obama talking to Pelosi and Eric Holder, and then of Al Gore. Watch their body language and tell me if you think that they're scared. Tell me if you think that they know there is something coming out in these audits. Okay, let's see.
And who is represented and who isn't. But we are going to see a breakdown of the basic agreement that has held this magnificent democratic experiment together all these years. And the only thing that's preventing that from happening is our sense of urgency and our willingness to do everything we can to prevent it. And that is going to require resources. That's going to require people paying attention. It's going to require public education. It's going to require us speaking out. I have every confidence that Nancy, working in conjunction with Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden and the others, and including people like Joe Manchin, are going to figure out a way in which there is an up and down vote on the For the People Act.
All right, so there you can see, and I'll play. And I apologize. Obama was cut off, and maybe his head was showing, but maybe that was intentional. I don't want to see as little as that man as possible after what he's done to this country. So that what you can see, though, if you look at his body, he's looking down. We got to do this, and what they're doing is they're trying to push through the For the People Act. To basically make it so easy to completely do the wrong things with the elections, right? So that now let me take a look at Al Gore, because this is he is panicking, and CNN brought him on and interviewed him they wanted him to come on and say, look, Al Gore, you had to admit defeat after there was some speculation, you were the bigger man. So they're trying to use him as a way of having him tell Trump to accept defeat and step down. So let's look at this. This is despicable, this interview. I'm not going to play it. And it looks like this guy, it looks like he's been sitting on a beach for the last 3 years. Let's look at, anyway, you'll make up your own opinions about Mr. Al Gore. Let's take a look at this guy.
Complete advantage. In some ways, I'll quote Winston Churchill, who said about Americans, Americans generally do the right thing after first exhausting every available alternative. That's sort of the situation I was in. But more seriously, it was a question of what is right for the country. Pamela, the refusal of the former president to acknowledge that he lost by 7 million votes, it wasn't close, for God's sake. And apparently a majority of his party is still so enthralled to him that they still believe that the American people did not make the judgment that they clearly made. This is very damaging to our democracy. I'm hoping that this craziness will fade over time, But we keep getting this nonsense, like this foolish exercise to bring in some cyber ninja group in Arizona to look for bamboo in the ballots there. It's absolutely nuts. We hear about AI, standing for artificial intelligence. They're putting another kind of AI out, artificial insanity. They're putting out
So he makes Obama look like an Oscar award winning actor. But if you look at him now, let's get past the fact that he looks like a toad who got left out on the beach for too long. I see someone mentioning Epstein Island, which he had a long vacation. But seriously though, if you look at him, look at his body language, look at his eye movement. He's looking down, he's looking to the side, he's kind of nervously, he's laughing. And this is, CNN brought him on as a, one of their key, parts of a show to illustrate what they say. Former VP Al Gore on GOP embrace of election conspiracies. Again, they're pushing, right? But no one's watching CNN anymore. No one cares about Al Gore anymore. No one cares about Obama anymore. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when Al Gore came out with his Inconvenient Truth and all the environmental stuff, people were fooled by that. People were, kind of drawn into that, and the whole green movement, which Al Gore is one of the leaders of. I'm going to do an in-depth coverage on that coming up soon. I'll probably call it the green the green new lie about the entire I can get into that. There's the entire conspiracy of the whole climate thing and how that's just a massive apparatus for implementing government control. And that's a rabbit hole I won't go down into on this show. But you can see it all over Al Gore's face. You can see it all over his body language. They're scared. They're panicking. They're absolutely panicking. Now, I want to jump to one other article about this, an Arizona lawmaker. This is kind of funny. So he went and saw, if you're familiar, there's a movie that is actually doing previews right now. It's the earlier, it hasn't been released fully yet, called Deep Rig. It was based upon the book. I believe it was Patrick Byrne who had done the book, really digging into covering what happened in the election. A lot of the forensic proof. Mike Lindell's talked to him many times about this. But so let me pull up this article for you because, again, they're panicking. And here you go. Arizona lawmaker says media losing their minds after he attended election documentary screening. So an Arizona lawmaker said the media are losing their minds because he was sitting in the audience for Saturday's screening of The Deep Rig, a movie which purports that the 2020 election was X from Trump. He said, quote, "They're losing their minds because I went to see a movie." And here, this is such a good point. This next statement here. He said, "Would they have lost their minds if I had seen An Inconvenient Truth? Because I did, and they didn't." This is Arizona Representative Mark Fincham, who's a Republican, who's currently running for Secretary of State out there. So, and this is really the perfect point because he went and saw An Inconvenient Truth, which was Al Gore's climate propaganda movie. Did the mainstream media lose their minds? No. But because he went and he watched this movie, Deep Rig, which was covering what happened in the election, then, of course, the media completely lost their minds over it because they're panicking. They're fearful. Now, I'm gonna go past the election. I can't say that word, but I'll go past what's happening in Maricopa, and I want to finish this segment to be on something with General Flynn. And this is something that is not just General Flynn talking about this. This is something much bigger. And also, a quick point to share with everybody is that I am aiming to have these shows being closer to 45 minutes, just to make it a little bit easier to share and watch. So I'm trying to get myself to be a little more concise in what I'm saying, make my points more swiftly for you, and hit about 45-minute mark for these live shows. But let's look at what General Flynn is saying because this is very important. So General Flynn warns, this is a couple of days ago, General Flynn warns of a potential false flag coming. So what he says, General Michael Flynn recently warned Americans that a false flag event could be coming to take people's eyes off the Arizona results. Flynn made his statement as a guest on the Steel Truth podcast, which is hosted by Ann Vandersteel. What an awesome last name, Vandersteel. I'd love to have that last name. Vandersteel, at one point in the show, asked Flynn whether he thinks a 9/11 type event will happen, or will the mainstream media use the hype around UFOs to cover up evidence of the result of the Arizona audit? Flynn responded by saying, "There's something that's going to happen, and it will further divide the country." He talked a little further about it, but this is something I want to finish the show in talking about this, because when I had a chance to meet General Flynn about a month ago out in Dallas, Texas, I asked him specifically this, almost the exact same question. Like, what do you see happening after the audit information is coming out? And for one, he was adamant. He said the truth will be coming out. It's not an if. The truth will come out about what has happened. He said, though, what his concern was, he says, look, the deep state will be doing anything they can to distract from this audit. They'll be doing anything they can. So, and he was most concerned about a potential false flag event. Now, if you're not familiar with the term false flag event, it's basically what it is it's a fake acted event with real consequences. Like, as an example, let's say that there's a certain region where they really want to get rid of guns. Well, maybe that they arrange for a shooting to happen, because that can then become the big the spark that ignites the entire narrative. They have to take guns away. Now, I'm not going to get into what I think have been these events in the course of our country's history, especially in the last 10 years, because that's a very touchy issue. But he is worried, he is concerned that there will be some sort of event. And a lot of the other folks I'm following, Mike Adams being one of them, a handful of others, are also concerned that there's a combination of things that will be coming down the pipeline. Some sort of event that's A, going to distract from the audit, but B, that is going to give them an excuse and a reason to come after the Second Amendment. So these are the concerns, and this is a very real concern. Like, what happens when an animal is backed into a corner? What happens with a rattlesnake? A rattlesnake will even bite itself when it's so fearful and backed into a corner, right? So the concern that I have is that these actors, these characters, they call it the deep state, that they are getting desperate, because, as we talked about, them having Biden in control is so important. It's so important for them maintaining control over everything. It's so important for them to implement their one world government that we can see that's happening here. Biden coming in, weakening our country, taking our guns away, as I understand it, is part of the plan to ready America for a communist takeover. And if you watched that, look, that may have sounded like crazy talk 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You would have been called, it's the McCarthy area, kind of conspiracy stuff coming back up again. But this is a very, very real threat. Now, am I scared of it? No, I don't want to be scared of these things. I'm doing what I can to fight it. But if you haven't yet, I highly recommend you go watch the end game video with Jeff Nyquist, which we covered this extensively and went into what could be happening, especially as it relates to the Chinese Communist Party, potentially Russia, as it ties into the Mexican border, the Canadian border. So, look, I'm not someone that focuses on the negative, but I also don't think that we should put our heads in the sand and ignore what's happening, right? Because we are reaching a boiling point. The Arizona audits, I called this video in the thumbnail TikTok. It was it's a time bomb. It's not just the audits. Everything is reaching a boiling point, right? As the audit information is coming out. So I'm genuinely concerned that the powers that be, that they will have some sort of event that they're planning, that I think it might be a combination of things. It might be targeting people that are opposing the injectable treatments. It might be targeting them. I think that it will probably be targeting the Second Amendment and giving them an excuse to come after the Second Amendment. I think it will also be fundamentally a giant distraction from the audits, because they know that their time is closing. The window for them to act is closing. And I think that none of you watching would argue with that this window is closing. So one thing that I would recommend is something that Mike Adams was recommending also, is we have to arm ourselves. Now, one thing I will say, because if you watch the video, I talked about Biden nuking the Patriots, and we talked about the Second Amendment. It is important, especially if you've never handled guns, to make sure you get the right kind of training. Make sure you learn about gun safety, et cetera. Any place you buy them, ask them to take a class on that. They'll give you classes. Every gun dealer I've ever worked with, they're always so excited to help new gun owners to learn about gun safety. So that's just a quick, kind of public service announcement for you. But this is an important time to arm ourselves, because I think that the threat of a foreign enemy coming in is very real. I think it's realer than it has been in a very long time. So I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, but I also think that it's important for us to just be prepared for these things. So again, going back to what Flynn said, and what I'm hearing in multiple other places, they are planning something. So what does that mean for you? I would just be very cautious if there's any kinds of public events, if there's any big, I'm glad that Trump's rally went fine in Ohio. My concern is that they might try something with these rallies, but just be very, very cautious, because they're looking for reasons to do these things. And fundamentally, just keep your cool. Don't react to things. Don't show up with a gun somewhere to protest. Really, keep your cool, be calm, be respectful. Because that's a whole other story about what we have to do, is we have to really help this country return back to its values, back to its Judeo-Christian values that this country is built upon. And that's not going to happen if we're rushing off and getting into fist fights with BLM. That's not the solution for this. We have to stay calm, stay patient, stay composed, because they're the ones that are panicking. And that's the important part, is that they're the ones that are panicking. Let's not be the ones that are panicking. Let's be the ones that are calm, in control, focusing on prayer and faith, and doing the things that are going to help us understand what the right thing to do is, which I really believe, if you don't know, ask God, pray on it. You'll be guided on what to do and how to act in these moments, because this is I believe what we would call the end game, right? So the video I talked about with China, this is the end game. I don't know the timeline of what's going to be happening, but I think that what we're going to see unfold in the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, I think are going to be the most important events that our human race potentially has ever seen. But again, if you know my perspective on this, I'm full of hope. I absolutely believe that we'll get through this, but we have to stay calm, composed. We have to stay rational. What's the wrong thing there? No more articles, but we have to really just keep our cool with this, because they're going to be looking for ways that they can unsettle us. They're going to be looking for ways that they can get us to react. And trust me, as soon as one person reacts, you can see the entire media narrative collapsing around them, and is pouncing to take that and make it look like, hey, look, this person's representative of all Trump supporters, et cetera. So I think this is the conclusion. I told you I'd stick around 45 minutes in the show. Just want to thank everyone again. One last time, thank you for coming and watching. Thank you for sharing the content. Thank you for following me on this journey. As I mentioned, I truly am full of hope. I think that they're losing. Their narrative is crumbling. They are really, really worried. They're the ones that are panicking. Remember, they're the ones that are panicking, because you know why? They don't have God on their side. That's the thing. They do not have God on their side. We do. America and people around the world that believe in freedom, that believe in virtues and morals, we have God on our side. And I think that's our strength. It's the hashtag God wins. Yeah, but even if there's an alien invasion, I see Dina mentioning that. Yes, exactly. That's what Flynn mentioned too. Even if there's an alien invasion that they might be distracting us with, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. God's on our side. In the end, we're going to win. Regardless of what happens ahead of us, just keep going, keep pushing, and we'll get through there. So I will see everyone on Thursday at noon Eastern time. Thanks again for showing up. I love all of you, and thank you for all the support. Take care.